It's the last Friday before training camp begins. We're talking two of the positions with positions up for grabs: offensive line, linebacker, and our favorite games since beginning to cover the Eagles. Coming up next on the PHLY Eagles podcast. Hello, everybody, and welcome to the PHLY Eagles podcast. Friday, high noon. Bo Wulf, Zack Berman here to talk about the linebacker position, the offensive line, a position in transition, and also some of our favorite games to close out rank week. Zack, your favorite Eagles games covering the team. How you doing? Happy Friday.
Doing well. Like you said in the cold open, last Friday before camp begins.
Like you said before the show started.
Yeah, I'm excited for camp. There's a certain, I like a certain rhythm to the year, to the day, to the season, and training camp is really the start of football season for me. So I'm excited, counting it down.
Yeah. I mean, I will be excited when training camp begins to be there for training camp, but I wouldn't mind if it didn't start for another month.
Really?
Yeah.
I don't know. I mean, I'll be honest with you.
You've had enough vacation? You're good?
Well, I'm not saying that. I'm saying I had enough.
You'll have the rest of your life with that family?
No, I'm not saying that either. I'm saying I had enough, man, I say this respectfully, kind of creating shows out of creating shows out of thin air, if you will.
Yeah.
I like substance to talk about. I like when the stories change every day, when there's something new and fresh and different. And for instance, I was prepping for the show, and it's going to be a really good show. But we've spoken about the offensive line for the past 6 months. We've spoken about the linebackers for the past 6 months. So when we have this conversation next week, there will be more information, right? We would have seen by that point 2 practices. We'll see how they're working through the depth chart. So point is, I'm excited for camp because the stories change. It's like you put everything in, you shuffle the deck, and you have a fresh deck.
But you don't want to stack that deck.
Well, you don't want to stack the deck because then you don't have much to talk about later in the year, right? So, yeah.
Okay. Well, let's talk about linebacker. Let's start there.
Yes.
Now, I think the most pressing question and the most interesting thing to find out over the course of the first week or so is the second starter opposite Devin White.
Yes.
And I think, if we flash up the depth chart, I still, in just on paper, I would put Nakobe Dean ahead of Zack Baun, but in the spring, it seemed like Zack Baun was maybe a half step ahead of him. Now Nakobe Dean was dealing with an injury.
Quite literally?
No.
Because Dean was injured, so Baun will be a step ahead. Sorry. I thought it was a good figure of speech.
Go ahead. You can take it from here.
Seriously? All right, keep going. All right, fine. Nakobe Dean was dealing with an injury during the spring. Zack Baun was taking the first team snaps.
Yes, but I would still, if we're playing the turkeys game, I would put 55 turkeys on Nakobe Dean still being the starter week 1 opposite Devin White. But do you feel the same way? Do you think this is Nakobe Dean's job to lose, or do you think that it really will be Zack Baun?
I think Nakobe Dean's the better player. So I'm going with Nakobe Dean right now. And that said, I don't think, I know Vic Fangio, Bobby King, Nakobe Dean doesn't have the same equity with them that he might have had with the previous coaching staff, right? Or, and so we're operating under the presumption here that Vic Fangio is making all the calls on defense, right? And so for Vic Fangio, it's kind of like a blank slate for certain players. And in Nakobe Dean's case, there's a lot. It might not have been the coaching staff, certainly the front office, and obviously Howie Roseman still has influence, but there's a vested interest in seeing Nakobe Dean succeed. And I'm not saying that Vic Fangio doesn't have that, but Vic Fangio these guys are starting from scratch. And so I am curious to see that. But I think that Nakobe Dean, we never got to see him fully healthy last year. When we had Josh Tolentino on the show earlier this offseason, he spoke about how, both the feet were a problem and it had to do with the shoes. I was bullish on Nakobe Dean coming out. That said, this is one where I'd learned from you that, the league told you what they thought. He was there in the third round. It wasn't health related, presumably, because he didn't miss any. The Eagles had a clean bill of health. My guess is it was an evaluation. It was whether it was size, whether it was speed, but there was an evaluation about Nakobe Dean. And through 2 years, it seems the league was more accurate on that than the Eagles. We'll see kind of what happens this season. I still think Nakobe Dean can play.
I think it's interesting because Zack Baun is a theoretical player still, right? It's not like if it was Oren Burks who was ahead of Nakobe Dean to start with for Vic Fangio, it would make a little bit more sense. Like this is a veteran who is going to give you a baseline of probably slightly below average level of play,
Fair
but like
point.
going to be dependable and reliable. And if Nakobe Dean can outplay that guy in camp, great, go win the job. But Zack Baun is not a player who has been a starting caliber inside linebacker. He hasn't even been in it. He's been a flex player. Now he's played it on occasion in that Saints defense, but he is still totally theoretical. And so for him to have been put ahead of, or I don't even know if it's fair to say ahead of Nakobe Dean in the spring because of the injuries. We don't know how that all factored in, but it's an interesting head-to-head, and it's also kind of funny because we're just, Devin White's just A1 and he's the guy, but he's coming off an incredibly down season.
Good point. So with Zack Baun, you said it well. It is theoretical. Now, from the size profile, he's a different size profile than Nakobe Dean. From a skill set profile, it's a different skill set profile than Nakobe Dean. So perhaps Vic Fangio, perhaps Bobby King, they're looking for a different type of player than Nakobe Dean. We'll see. It also could be as simple as Nakobe Dean was hurt this spring. They're waiting for him to be fully healthy.
Sure.
And he's going to be fine here.
And our expectations or our understanding is that, the front office remains relatively high on Nakobe Dean, right? Howie Roseman went out of his way to gas him up in the end of season press conference.
Yeah. With Devin White, there's more demonstrated performance there. We've seen Devin White play at a high level. Now we've seen him play at a poor level, and the league spoke to you there as well, right? Devin White didn't get a huge deal. When we were talking about the free agents that were available this offseason, Devin White, you would have thought Devin White would have gotten Jordan Brooks's deal based on name appeal, right? But clearly that's not the case. He got a 1-year deal. It's really like a $4 million deal. I know there's up to money, but it's really a $4 million deal. Whereas some of these other starting linebackers were getting 8, 9, 10, 11, 12 million a year in multi-year deals. So the league spoke to you there. I think Devin White, first off, he was the green dot player during the spring. He told us himself he was wearing the green dot and dime. That means you're playing all 3 downs. We know the speed profile there. We've seen the blitzing. Now, that hasn't been something that Vic Fangio has used in his scheme historically from the linebackers, but Devin White said Vic told him he would cater the skill set or cater the defense to the player skill sets. When we had James Palmer on earlier this offseason, he said that's one thing that Fangio will do is he'll look at his players.
If you can prove you can do it, then he'll let you do it.
Exactly. So I can see why Devin White is the top guy. Look, Devin White's the kind of player I would like, right?
Of course.
Former high draft pick, great athletic profile, proven production in the league, buying low but buying pedigree. I like that.
What is a better reversal? Devin White turning into White Devin or Bobby King turning into King Bobby?
I was not prepped for that question. I have no insight. I guess I would rather be called King Bobby than White Devin, right? But
I don't know. You tell me.
Yeah, I think King is.
It's kind of funny, yeah. But King is so highfalutin, but Bobby, you don't think of a King Bobby.
Yeah, but still, you're the king, right? That's a sign
It's
of
a little bit disparate, though.
that's a
Don't you
sign
think?
of respect.
Bobby is a child, or a
That's a sign of respect. Also,
it's a sign of respect to call someone king.
king. I've met people with
It's
the
a
first
sign of
name.
respect.
I've met people with the first name King.
King
King
Dunlap.
Dunlap.
Yeah.
I've never met
Howard
someone.
Eskin.
Staying away from that one. I've never met someone with the first name White. Have you?
I'm trying to think. I mean, there are some names that are basically the same thing as White.
I know there's like a Whitey, you know.
Yeah, that's true.
Whitey Ford, Whitey Bulger,
Yeah.
right? Not that I know Whitey Bulger, nor Whitey Ford for that matter, but I do know King Dunlap. Anyways, I like how I made it. I made a reference to Nakobe Dean being injured. Okay. And Zack Baun being a half step ahead, and you acted like I grinded this show to a screeching halt. Yeah, you asked me for my evaluation if it's better to be White Devin or King Bobby, and I'm supposed to give you succinct 90 seconds on this, right? Like I think that shows that shows the differences here.
I think it's so funny how concerned you were of making sure everybody knew that you don't know Whitey Bulger. Please, just don't get twisted. I don't actually know Whitey Bulger. Please.
Well, I know sometimes you take things literally, so I want to be careful here. Bo is back, Shay says. Yes, we got 4 days. We got 2.5 days of like vacation Bo, and then we got kind of like in between, and now we got the full Bo experience back.
I mean, I'm still vacation Bo, man. I'm still, know, water off a duck's back. No big deal.
Okay.
How about the rest of the linebacking core? I mean, well, first of all, but before we move on, do you imagine that we're going to get like a rotation on a daily basis between Nakobe Dean and Zack Baun? Do you think it's going to be one person and they're going to stick for a week or so? How do you think that Vic Fangio is going to run this?
Yeah, I'm anticipating like a true competition at linebacker. So I don't know if it's going to be one off, one on. If it's going to be, they have a schedule where they have 2 practices and then like a walkthrough off day type thing, right? So it could be because we've said this in the past, the Eagles have a green, yellow, red day, right? So and that's like their cycle. So during that cycle, during the 2 practices on, maybe you have one guy, and then when you get back, it's another guy. But I don't think it's going to be someone takes every single snap there until the 3rd preseason game. My guess is they go back and forth. I do expect Devin White to always be with the first team.
Do you think day 1 will be Nakobe Dean or Zack Baun? What's your guess?
Good question, Poe. I'm guessing day 1 is going to be Nakobe Dean.
Me too.
Yeah.
But we'll see. Yeah. You know what they have in Argentina that I really appreciate?
While we're on the subject?
Yeah, well, you talk about the green, yellow, red. Mm-hmm. They have the traffic lights, the yellow before the light turns green, from red to green, in addition to before the light turns from green to red, which I like. I think we need that in America.
Why is that?
I think it's good heads up.
Okay.
Keeps the traffic moving.
Are you this is I don't know if this is a personality test or not. When you see the yellow light, do you slow down or do you speed up?
I try not to speed up, but I mean it depends on the situation.
Like, are you trying to make the light, or are you trying to?
Depends on the situation.
Okay.
It's not. It's never all or nothing, or all or one or the other. Totally depends. Give me a situation.
You're driving and there's a yellow light.
There's a baby in the middle of the road. No. I would say I try to lean towards the conservative, but that's not always the case. Also, if I know the light well and I know the length of the yellow, like that might play into things.
This might surprise you. I'm more of a slow downer in that situation. My wife, she's more of the speed up, and she argues actually that I'm being less safe because by me slowing down, the cars behind me might be speed up people, and they want to they're gonna get frustrated. I have gotten some honks when I'm like stopping at the yellow.
I think the rubric that you should teach is if you can make the yellow without changing your speed at all,
without pushing on
without doing anything, then you should go through.
Yeah.
And if not, then you should slow down.
Okay.
Yeah.
But I mean, there is some like physics involved there, right? You don't know. Like you're staying at the same
Explain
speed.
physics to me.
Explain physics.
Yeah,
to you?
what are we talking about?
Did you not
now?
take physics in ninth
No, I
grade?
don't understand what you're saying. There's some physics involved. Go ahead.
Acceleration, velocity.
Those are words, yes. How do they play into what I was saying?
Because you're saying the speed that you're going, right? At some like you're saying you're just keeping.
Yeah, don't just. I mean, you in theory, you should be trying to have a steady speed the entire time that you're driving, right? You want to be going at a smooth speed. And
Yeah, but I'm saying so you see the yellow light. So by definition, you're supposed to have a reaction to the yellow light. So you're saying when you see the yellow light, you don't even. How do you know if you'll be able to make that yellow light at the speed?
Well, that's the judgment.
You make a determination based on the distance. Am I decelerating or am I accelerating? Not X, but
well, in theory, it's not always. This is more in theory than in practice. But you shouldn't have to move your foot if your foot is on the pedal at the same level. You don't need to be accelerating or decelerating.
Okay. I'm still thrown off how you said there's physics involved. That's a very. Am I wrong about physics? Like that's literally what physics is.
Sort of. I don't. It's not really. I don't. Whatever.
Did you learn acceleration in physics?
Vacation boat doesn't need to worry about.
Did you learn acceleration in physics class?
Well, yeah, but just because you're using vocabulary from the class doesn't mean that it was related to what I was talking about.
You're making a determination of the distance. Okay, the distance that you're trying to get to is beyond the yellow light. So what you're trying to determine is whether the speed that you are going, the speed you have will get you past the yellow light.
But are you the kind of driver where you're, I mean, and I know the answer to this because I have ridden in a car with you, but are you the kind of driver who is like you're stepping on the gas and then stepping on the gas like full go and like you're stop and start? Like,
do I do that? I didn't think I did.
You shouldn't be herky-jerky. You should be.
I didn't think I was herky-jerky.
I don't know.
Well, you said you know the answer. You've been in the car. I mean, am I herky-jerky?
I don't know if you're all the way herky-jerky, but there's a little herk. There's a little jerk.
Maybe the one time we were driving from Buffalo and we were doing a podcast in the car from Buffalo to Rochester, and I was driving. And, what's that? In
a rainstorm, right?
Yeah, and I was driving and doing a podcast and getting made fun of and being, So yeah, maybe in that situation there was a little herk and jerk, but I don't want that to be a drop. But I don't know why I even asked you this question in the first place. I do think that in general I try not to be herky jerky because it's bad for your brakes, right?
Yeah.
And so you don't want to replace your brakes within prematurely. So brakes are. Yeah, brakes are expensive, man.
That's physics, baby.
That's not physics, actually. Brake pads are not physics, but okay.
Okay. All right. Back to the linebackers.
Yes, thank you. Back to the linebackers.
The other big question here is the role for Jeremiah Trotter Jr., right?
Yes.
And I think if you look at the overall linebacker picture, it's underwhelming, no doubt, right? None of those guys, Devin White included, is guaranteed of giving you a level of competent play. If Jeremiah Trotter, as a fifth-round rookie, can look the part, do you think there is a path for him to make an impact on defense earlier than later?
Well, there's less resistance in front of him than, say, if he was a left tackle, right? Is
it a yellow light or a green light for him?
I mean, it's certainly not a red. I'm not anticipating Jeremiah Trotter Jr. playing early, but I think back, the Eagles had the period of time there when they took some of these flyers at linebacker, and you see guys like T.J. Edwards and Alex Singleton emerge into starting roles when they didn't go into the season as the starters. Point being, when you don't have someone who's like established or there's a strong financial commitment or even there's a strong like draft pedigree, then you're able to kind of push those guys for playing time. So if Devin White or Nakobe Dean or Zack Baun, if they struggle and Jeremiah Trotter shows promise, then yeah, Jeremiah Trotter could push his way, could accelerate into the lineup.
Nice.
I think I'm more optimistic about Devin White, but yeah, I'm certainly not rolling out. And then the other thing too is if Nakobe Dean gets banged up, which he's done, and Zack Baun isn't a good player, which is certainly plausible, right? Then yeah, Jeremiah Trotter. Well, I would think Oren Burks is the next guy up,
right? Because
he has the experience. But Jeremiah Trotter Jr. would be in the mix. I was talking to someone about this week, And I'm not trying to give, what was the free agency term we used? OP optimist.
Yeah.
I'm not trying to give the OP optimist. It's a low bar to clear here, but the linebackers going into camp this year are better, like reasonably better than the linebackers going into camp last year.
Probably.
Because last year
Well,
if you don't count
the
Cunningham Jack.
Yeah, sure.
Because I think last year they wanted to do everything they could not to get anything in the way of Nakobe Dean being the guy.
But I also think on paper last year, Nakobe Dean was higher thought of than he is
Well said.
right
True.
now. Right. So like the Nakobe Dean of July 2023 was better in our minds than the Nakobe Dean of right now.
Because what the person was trying to counter to me was like, are these guys they added like that much more promising than Nicholas Morrow last year? And
last year they had Christian Ellis.
Plus last year they had Christian Ellis. That is true. But they didn't spend a draft pick on a backer last year.
Yeah.
You know, Ben Van Sumeren was the only like notable undrafted rookie that they signed to. So there's reason to feel more confident about their linebackers. But I was in a different conversation where, I was on a show yesterday where the question was like, are they not valuing linebacker enough? And I said, I don't mean to give like the Eagles talking points here, but this is my personal opinion on this, is that what matters most is like your pass rush and your corners, right? And I don't have a problem with worrying less about linebacker and to a degree safety, but you have to be really good at pass rush and really good at corner. So if you're talking about what concerns me about the Eagles this year on defense, it's not their personnel at linebacker, it's the questions they have with the pass rush.
Now, the last player that we need to talk about, and you touched on him very briefly there, but you follow the news these days. There's so much going on, and pretty much all they're talking about is Ben Van Sumeren. Palpable Ben Van Sumeren buzz.
Oh, I see what you did there.
Give us the Ben Van Sumeren stock price right now. What are your expectations?
Yeah, I don't think Ben Van Sumeren is going to have any type of push to play linebacker this year, but I think Ben Van Sumeren can be on the 53 based on his special teams prowess.
Do you think it's like a head-to-head for a roster spot with him and Oren Burks? Good
question. Maybe so, because Oren Burks you can also put on practice squad, right, and not guarantee the salary. Maybe so, sure. It's hard for me right now, sitting in the seat, to tell you what like the kickoff situation is going to be. There was a great piece this week by Sean Syed on Sumer Sports, where I hope I'm pronouncing Sumer Sports correctly, where he went through all the XFL kickoffs. And I'm trying to learn more about the kickoffs. There's a good piece by Ted Gwynn on The Athletic, where it was also about this strategy. But I want to see what type of body type is going to be valuable there. I would imagine a linebacker is important in that type of role. So I think Ben Van Sumeren can make the team there, but I don't anticipate Ben Van Sumeren being a factor for playing defense this year.
All right. Well, we will find out. But before we move on to the offensive line, Zach, it's time for me to tell you about our friends at Rite Aid. Rite Aid, our boys, our ladies, our people. Rite Aid. Let me tell you about their refreshery, okay? This line of beverages ranges from familiar family favorites, Triple F, almost as good as midweek mailbag, to revitalizing better-for-you options, and all of it is exclusively at Rite Aid. Products include waters, purified, spring, electrolyte, distilled, and alkaline bottled water, plus flavored waters. You've also got coconut water, which boasts a power-packed array of essential nutrients, is fat-free, gluten-free, non-GMO, and has less than 1% sugar. You've also got your single-serve iced tea, juice, and lemonade sweetened with real sugar, no preservatives, juices for a crowd, pineapple, cranberry, apple, strawberry, lemonade, and many other flavors. Organic options available as well. Great for everyday use or to use as mixers for cocktails and mocktails. We know that Jordan Davis has been swapping in and out the drinks that he's been drinking this offseason in order to stay in better shape. Maybe you can too. They've also got cold-pressed juices at Rite Aid, crafted from 100% fruits and veggies, organic, non-GMO, no added sugars, preservatives, or artificial flavors, packaged in eco-friendly glass bottles, which reduces plastic waste. So when you're walking around the city, you're sweating, you need a little refresher, you know you're going to spot a Rite Aid eventually. They're all over the place. Pop in, get yourself a little sustenance. It is important to stay hydrated, especially during the summer months. Get refreshment delivered as well. Shop online at riteaid.com/shop for same-day delivery, or buy online, pick up in a store of refreshery products.
I was a little later today than I'd like to be, and the reason is because I was looking for my sunglasses. I was fortunate enough to find them, but if I did not find them, the place that I would have turned was Shady Rays, because Shady Rays is an independent sunglasses company that offers a world-class product rated 5 stars by over 300,000 people. Their shades have durable frames and crystal clear optics, making them the perfect choice for all outdoor adventures. They have hundreds of options to choose from, so you're bound to find the perfect pair to match your style. They probably have a style in your favorite team's colors. I wear Shady Rays. I wear sunglasses when it's sunny out. Clearly, not typically in studio. But I'm going to A.J. Brown's football camp this afternoon. I needed sunglasses for that football camp, and so that's why it's important to have Shady Rays at hand there. The good thing, too, is if I couldn't find the shades, or if the shades take an unexpected hit, don't sweat it. They have the most insane protection in all of eyewear. Every pair is backed by lost or broken replacements. And if you don't love your shades, exchange them for a new pair or return worry-free within 30 days. How incredible is that? Just take out all the worry. There's no risk when you shop. Their team always has your back with personal and fast support. Exclusively for our listeners, Shady Rays is giving out the best deal of the season. Head to shadyrays.com and use code PHLY for 35% off polarized sunglasses. Try for yourself the shades rated 5 stars by over 300,000 people.
All right, Zach, let's talk. The most important position.
This is the Bo Wulf talk right
training
here.
Camp,
Yes.
Really I can try to beat back the enthusiasm that you have for training camp. Like, let's let vacation last a little bit longer. But once we see those offensive linemen put on those pads, all of a sudden we're full mast. You know what I'm saying?
Nothing like seeing Bo's face when he sees Jason Poe for the first time this summer.
That's exactly
right.
That
is.
Yeah. So offensive line, obviously, a major factor here for the Eagles. Now, you and I talked earlier this week about the Jason Kelce. Maybe we're undervaluing the effect that it's going to have on the field. If this offensive line goes from a top 3 offensive line to a top 10 offensive line, that's a pretty significant downgrade, as good as they may still be. Lane Johnson has some injury question marks. You've still got Jordan Mailata and Landon Dickerson on the left side. But Cam Jurgens, there's no guarantee of what level of Jason Kelce he's going to give you, and we don't know who the right guard is going to be yet. So I guess first, right guard, my expectation is it's going to be Tyler Steen, not in a rotation. He's going to be the guy every day until it seems like he is not handling it, or a guy like Mekhi Becton is just too good to ignore. What about you?
I agree with that sentiment. I think Tyler Steen is going to have every opportunity to win this job. And I think the deck is stacked in his favor.
Yeah.
Okay. I think that they want Tyler Steen to win the job. That said, I think if it becomes clear that Mekhi Becton can play guard, that Mekhi Becton has talent at guard, then no matter if Tyler Steen looks like really good or not, I think they're at least going to be intrigued by the possibility of seeing Mekhi Becton there. So I don't see a situation where like Matt Hennessy is the Stefan Wisniewski, at least during training camp. Like I think things even being close to equal, it's going to be Tyler Steen. I think the only scenario where I see something different outside of injury, of course, is if like Mekhi Becton, they come back and Stoutland and Sirianni and Kellen Moore and Howie Roseman and Kevin Patullo, they're watching film and they're just like, we can't take our eyes off this guy, right? And if they do that, then they might be compelled to look at Becton in that role. But otherwise, I expect this to be Steen's job.
Yeah, I think it might be the kind of thing where like a week or two into camp, there's like a part of Howie Roseman that's sort of hoping that Tyler Steen stubs his toe and has to take a couple days off so that they can get a look at Mekhi Becton without it being a big deal.
Yeah, I would suggest that Tyler Steen don't stub your toe, man, right? Because, well, I don't want to use a reference that that I've mistakenly used in the past about a broadcast situation, right?
Oh,
yes.
yeah,
Okay.
Yeah.
I'll just say you don't want to be Wally Pipp, right? Yeah. That's probably a better one.
Sure.
But to the original point here, I think you brought it up well. In my time covering the Eagles, I've gone into training camps where they've had questions at one spot on the offensive line. I've never gone into training camps where they had questions at two spots on the offensive line. And not to say that, like, I think Cam Jurgens at the minimum is like a replacement level center. Like, I think it's year 3, second round pick, started at guard last year, natural center, right? Like, you can expect that. But we've seen such outstanding play at center, and we've seen like good, I would say decent to good play at right guard over the past few years. I thought Isaac Seumalo was really good 2 years ago.
Yes.
I thought Cam Jurgens was solid last year. But
in the first half of the season, not in the second half of the season.
But there have been times during the past, let's say 5-6 years, where they had a question at left guard, right? You think back to 2017. They've had times when there's questions at right guard, but they haven't had two positions where they've had questions at left tackle, right? But they haven't had two positions going into training camp where you say, we need to see if they're getting this type of play from there.
Yeah, and I'm sort of fascinated by the Cam Jurgens situation because as Jason Kelce becomes like one of the biggest stars in sports, all eyes are on Cam Jurgens.
Yep.
The corn-fed boy from Beatrice, Nebraska, this small town. It's an interesting mantle for him to have to grab.
Absolutely, and like Jason Kelce, he's never been more popular than he is right now. It seems like, right? I was on the Inquirer app this morning, and I think in the Eagles tab, I think 4 of the last 6 stories were about Jason Kelce, and I'm like, he's not even on the team, right? But it's good business, right? You write about Jason, you talk about Jason, people are gonna read and watch and listen. Point being that this is going to be something that looms throughout the year. Everything Cam Jurgens does is going to be compared to Jason Kelce, right? His first home game that he's playing, Jason Kelce is going to be there. As Lane Johnson said the other day, Jason Kelce has a locker. He said this to Kay Adams on FanDuel, I believe, right? Where he said Jason Kelce has a locker with the in the coaches' locker rooms. Jason has a very distinctive car. Like, it's one of those cars that it's Jason Kelce's. And every time I've been at the facility this spring, I've seen that car there. And what's interesting is that in past years, there's a player parking lot and then there's a parking lot where we are. So now Jason's in the general parking lot. Like, he's not in the player parking
Gen
lot.
Pop.
He kind of, and I respect that about Jason. Like, he respects the boundaries. He's
sort of.
Sort of, but I think he looks at it. He gets a free lift in, right? I mean, he probably gets a free lunch as well.
He likes that light. He likes that lunchroom.
Exactly. Yeah. So this is a way of saying that the questions I feel for Cam Jurgens, because this is going to be, everything's going to be, what'd you learn from Kelce? Did you get the chance to talk to Kelce? What's Kelce telling you? Yeah.
Right, and even his teammates are like, well, how does he do this compared to Kelce?
Exactly.
Yeah, it's a weird spot to be in.
Yeah.
Okay.
It's kind of like someone sitting in your seat, like trying to be the replacement host for 2 weeks, like that. That was daunting.
I would not go that far.
That was quite daunting for me. I got to tell you, I was over prepared for every show because I tried to keep the train moving.
Well, Zach, if Cam Jurgens can do as good a job as you did, the Eagles will be in great shape.
Vacation Bo, that's a nice thing to say. Yeah, joyous at all. Yeah. As far as the depth here, who are you expecting Hennessy to be a center this summer?
I don't know. I'm expecting him to be the game day backup center.
Sure.
Yes.
So he's just going to have to snap and
probably.
Yeah.
And so, I imagine that we will see that. But, I mean, that was a very interesting part of the spring, that he took all his reps at right guard. And so I think that's part of why I don't fully believe in the Eagles' professed confidence in Tyler Steen. But I do. At some point, he's gonna have to take those reps.
You think he's definitely on the 53?
I think if he can stay healthy, he is definitely on the 53.
Okay.
Yeah. Then obviously you've got, Becton too has to prove that he can stay healthy. They have Fred Johnson on the outside as well.
But Becton's going to be on the team just based on the financial commitment. So
Sure, but he still has to. I'm just talking who's going to make this team. He has to prove that he can stay healthy.
Sure.
Trevor Keegan, I'm excited to get eyes on.
Yeah, friend of the show.
Interesting that he only played left guard in the spring. I want to see if he's moving around at all. Obviously, my guy Dylan McMahon. Can't wait to see him.
D-Mac,
making moves in the open field. And then I am excited to see which of these guys on the third team defensive line is gonna give me a little spark. It's gonna make it pop. Aneem Dankwa from Howard, the undrafted rookie, the international player Laiken Vakalahi, Darian Kennard, who they signed to a futures deal, Brett Toth, who has been around on the team, I believe, since the days of
2019.
Chuck Bednarik.
No, 2019. Remember that well.
Yeah,
I was so excited when they signed him. Yeah.
Really?
It was a great story. Don't you remember?
I was so excited when they signed him. Yes.
I think I called you. I think I called you or texted you and said, "Are you okay if I do a feature on Toth?" And you're like, "Yeah, yeah, that's fine." I remember right away calling Jeff Monken, the Army coach, leaving the practice field so I can speak to Jeff Monken, the Army coach, and I remember having a real good conversation with Brett Toth about. A lot's changed in our country since then. It's like small potatoes. I shouldn't say small potatoes. It affects somebody's life quite a bit. But at the time, there was a big ruling about about players from military academies.
Part of his marching orders were that he had to say thank you to the president at the time. However,
players from military academies.
It wasn't his thing.
Yeah, but I'm saying it's just I don't want to say it's funny to think, but that was this. Like that was something that they were.
Was that part of the creative heater?
2019. Yeah, that I don't include that in the creative heater, but that was. Look for a week 3 training camp story. Jeez, that was a good week 3 training camp story. The week
Did you
before
get some subs on that bad boy?
Oh yeah, the week before that was Jay Liggins. That summer also included Nick Foles' coffee story.
You got raked over the coals for that one.
I came with a list, and I was
Brent Selleck's real estate
Brent
business.
Selleck's real estate. Oh my God, I was like,
oh my God,
I went into that summer determined to show that I belong.
Yeah, you wanted to walk into the media room, and everybody was calling you King Zack.
I don't want to go that far. You're only as good as your next story.
Well, okay, gonna be tough to beat that Brett Toth story though.
Real quick. Who has the best chance of being the Camp Crush here? Jason Poe?
You keep asking that. You can't stack the deck for the Camp Crush. It's what the eyes see. There's nobody.
It's like in college looking at,
Go on. Julie has lost it. Go on. Finish your line of thought.
In the early years of Facebook, like you would see who was in the class. Like you would just get a sense of who's in your class, right? I guess you didn't do that. I'll raise my hand. I did do that.
Wow.
Okay.
There are lots of versions of Zach that I appreciate and embrace, but Horny Zach is one of my favorites from a content perspective.
That's not. I wouldn't say that.
What do you mean? Take that. What do you mean? That's not. That's literally what you're talking about.
That's not the adjective I would use. No. Because
just because we have different language usage doesn't make it
perhaps
inaccurate.
you just want to see if you have common friends. Perhaps you just want to see where
don't walk it back.
No, all right, let's proceed. Okay.
I think we can all agree that content-wise, HZ is as good as it gets.
Please stop. All right. Are you expecting Dylan McMahon to make some noise this summer? You liked him in camp.
Yeah, I liked his prospect profile a lot. I'm excited to see what he looks like. Yeah.
And then my other O-line question for you was last summer was like the summer of Fred Johnson, right? He
yes, of course, as we all remember.
He had a real good training camp. He earned a contract extension.
Yeah, they cut him so that they could sign him to the extension.
Yeah.
Remember, that was a big deal.
Yep. Are you anticipating Fred Johnson like definitely being on the team, or do you think he has?
I don't think that he's guaranteed being on the team. No, I think he has to. I think it's probably a little bit related to Mekhi Becton if he is in fact the swing tackle, and then how Fred Johnson looks. Obviously, injuries will affect everything. What are you losing it on?
I just shouldn't have said that about Facebook. That was, sorry. Okay, let's go on.
Okay. Anything else on the offensive line that's interesting to you?
Well, I kind of defer to you with offensive line. I mean, you're gonna be. I'll be watching 7-on-7. You'll be watching 1-on-1s. But no,
some of us care where football is won in the trenches.
I think like we haven't talked about the top of the depth chart here at tackles.
Yeah.
I think Jordan Mailata and Landon Dickerson are going to continue getting better. I mean, Landon in particular. Landon's going into year 4 now. They paid him to be one of the best guards in the league. I saw a write-up last week. I think it was ESPN. I hope I'm crediting it correctly. Where they said like all around, he might be the best guard in the league. We can like Jordan Mailata is at a point in his career where you almost kind of take for granted. That the story you kind of take that for granted. Like now you just evaluate him purely as a football player. I thought he had a really good year, or I thought he had a good year last year, and I think he can continue to improve. Lane is kind of at that stage of his career where you wonder if there is a drop off. I just think he's such a smart player now. And he'll tell you this. Like athletically, he might not be the same type of athlete that he was 5 years ago. But I heard him on Ryan Marsillo's podcast 2 weeks ago, and he was kind of talking about what his training's like in the offseason, focusing on flexibility and things of that nature, and kind of seeing it. Does he need work this offseason against power rushers? Does he need work against speed rushers? And so I just think he's so smart and really knows how to play that position that he'll be fine. But with him, you just got to watch out for the health because if he misses time, it's going to be a question there.
Yeah, and it's not like cornerback for offensive tackles where like all of a sudden you might just totally fall off a cliff. Like health-wise, potentially, but as long as Lane Johnson's healthy, even if he is not an all-pro caliber, he's still like the drop-off is not going to be in his level of play significant enough that it's like hurting the team, right? So as long as he's healthy, they will be good there. But we will see how much they need to dip into the reserves. I'm also curious about. I thought that the point that Brandon Lee Gowton brought up on the show when he was on last month about like what if Tyler Steen is just a tackle and he's not well suited to play guard. If that is a thing that maybe plays out.
Good point. I've told this in the past when Isaac Seumalo was here. Now he eventually morphed into like a really productive guard, but early in his career, that was the discussion they were having. Is like, what is his best position? Just because someone's versatile doesn't mean that they're going to be good at all those positions in the NFL. Like if you're able to play, if they think you can play guard, but it's clear that he's a tackle, then that changes their thinking of him. Maybe and him being like a good swing tackle would be a fine outcome for the Eagles. I don't think it's your preferred outcome, but then you really need to have right guard figured out.
Yes, exactly. All right, well, that's a good rundown of the offensive line and linebackers. Why don't we talk a little bit of a rank week? And if you were the kind of person who needed to insert an ad into this episode after the fact, now would probably be a good time to do so. Boom. Okay.
If you're that type of person.
Yeah, if you're the kind of person, that might be helpful.
Okay.
Let's talk rank week.
Yes.
Exactly. The story out on allphly.com now, the top 25 games in Philadelphia since 1980. But let's narrow our scope to the Eagles and the games that you and I have covered. So what we wanted to do was top 5 games that you and I have covered, most memorable. And what to change the parameters a little bit, you can't do more than one game per season.
Which
is I feel like 2017 would otherwise be carrying a lot of weight.
Yes, and you have a longer scope here, and because you were in the organization in
09, but I wasn't here in 15 and 16.
But those were like not exhilarating years for the Eagles there, unless you're really into that. Baltimore game although I do actually have a 2015 game on this list.
Oh, interesting.
It lives in infamy. I do want to say real quick before we get into this, you can check out the top 25 for all sports. It's since 1980. It was a fun, interesting list to put together. Basically, what happened was each Now, I'll give a shout out to the union if they're not a part of this. But when I say the 4 major teams, I should say 5 major teams. But the major the sports we know as like the major professional sports: Eagles, Sixers, Phillies, Flyers. Each coverage group kind of submitted 10 games, and then Anthony Gargano decided and kind of put together a list there.
So did you do this on your own? Because I was
Yeah,
on
I didn't want to bother you in Brazil. Yeah,
it's okay.
So,
I appreciate that.
Yeah.
But I'm curious because I don't agree with all of the choices
Sure.
that you.
Well, and then there were some too. Like I got to tell you, I'm 38. I was born in 1986. I don't know the 80s as well. I
Sure.
know some, but like Anthony put something on there that you wrote about that's on the top 25. It was a strike game, and
Well, just post strike.
yeah,
Yes.
I'm sorry, post strike. That was not on my initial list, right? And so that's what made kind of this list interesting. Is you're looking at 4 decades, you're looking at 4 teams, and then there's also different ways you weigh it. Some people emphasize the significance of the game. Some people emphasize or prioritize, I should say, like how spectacular the moment was, right? You think about the Snow Bowl, for instance. That was a spectacular day. So that's what made this list fun. And so you can check that out on allphly.com. And Chris has done an awesome job on social where you can actually see video of a lot of these as well.
All right. So you want to go top to bottom or back to front?
So starting at 1 or starting at 5? Let's start at 5.
Okay. I mean, I imagine we're both going to have the same number 1.
Yes, exactly.
Right?
Yep.
What's your number 5? Go ahead.
So I frame this as like most memorable, not the best game, but most memorable. Okay. So this is the only loss that's on here for me.
Okay.
And that is 2015 Eagles lose to the Lions on Thanksgiving. And I put that
Interesting.
Yeah.
Really?
Well, because that's one of those like when you say remember when games, like because that game was the first time you were like, wow, Chip could be fired here. It was just an embarrassing performance by the Eagles. It was the low point of that season, and it kind of, I recall being in the Ford Field press conference afterwards, and when Jeff McClain asked Chip what the problem was, and Chip didn't have the answer. He said, "Is it you?" Right?
Yeah, of course.
I remember that, and so I didn't want to just have like monumental wins on here. So mine was not the best because it clearly was not the best game, not the best played game, and not a consequential game like from the significance of the standings. But when I think of my time covering the team, and you say what are the most memorable games, I'll always remember that 2015 game more so than
this is
any
a
other.
beat writer's perspective, not a fan's perspective. Totally reasonable.
Yeah, exactly.
Okay. Yeah, like I would. It's not in my top 5, but like of the first Sirianni season, I think like the most memorable game for me is probably the Raiders game. Like when they just got torched, and then Fletcher Cox sort of throws Jonathan Gannon under the bus in the post-game press conference. Like to me, that was like the snapshot game from that season.
I just remember being in Vegas and how much fun that was. So
in the middle of COVID, we were just parading about. Go make me some money.
You can be outside. That's a great thing. Yeah, walk outside. It was beautiful.
Well, I mean, literally nobody spends time outside in Vegas.
I did. I took a nice walk on the strip.
Number 5 for me, the double doink, the playoff victory over the Chicago Bears in the 2018 season. I mean, not much to say about the game. I mean, that Vic Fangio defense, it was the best defense in the league. Can they move the ball? You got the 4th down touchdown to Golden Tate, and then obviously Cody Parkey has the double doink as the game ends. And I remember going to look at the smudge marks on the field goal that you could see where the ball hit both times.
What an intrepid reporter you are. That is awesome. I remember that game well because I had to rush home. I did Chicago that morning, Chicago that night because Emily was 9 months pregnant, and fortunately Sloan waited until Wednesday, so I was okay. But 3 days later,
fantastic.
Yep.
All right, what's your number 4?
Number 4, 2018. I'm going London. Okay.
Really?
Yeah.
Okay, so this is more of a personal.
I thought that's what you wanted.
That's okay. That's fine.
You said your most memorable games on the beat.
Yeah. That's fine. Go ahead.
Am I wrong?
That's fine. Go ahead.
So you can go on allphly.com.
But that's what I wanted to debate the ranking. It's fine. Go ahead.
All right, sorry.
Vacation Bo does not care.
I
what
misinterpreted
you do.
the assignment. Okay. Going to London was a real seeing a game at Wembley. I was not brought to tears, but it was really neat. The cool thing about soccer press boxes, I guess, is that like you're closer to the field. You're outdoors. I just thought it was so cool being in London.
Josh Adams running wild.
Jordan Matthews. I remember my flight. I connected in Boston, and my flight to Boston, writing a Jordan Matthews story. Didn't have internet. Was just kind of going based on my notes. It was.
Kelsey missed a snap because he got cleated in the junk.
Yeah, and it was real cool for me to be in London. I don't really have much context of London otherwise, so my understanding of London is football. It's American football. Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah.
For me, this one, the number 4 is tough because there's the 2 games from Chip's first season.
Okay.
There's the first game, the debut, and then there's the Snow Bowl. I would probably put the Snow Bowl with a slight edge here for the spot. But in the story on the website, there is some disagreement between you and I about which of the Eagles games at FedEx Field is more memorable. You think that the Michael Vick 6 touchdown game when he throws the touchdown pass to Deshaun Jackson on the first play of the game is more memorable than the Chip Kelly debut. I disagree with that.
Yeah, I disagree with you there. I mean, the Chip debut, you don't have to convince me. That was extraordinarily memorable. I think the line I use is the revolution's being televised, right? But I think to that Michael Vick game, given the way he played, the significance of the moment, like that was Michael Vick's back game, right? Michael Vick was such a polarizing figure. The player on the other team, the starting quarterback on the other team, is Donovan McNabb. Donovan McNabb signed a contract extension in Washington that day. It leaks right before the game.
I literally forgot that Donovan was the quarterback of that game.
Okay, yeah. Donovan,
how unmemorable that was.
I got to tell you, there's a chapter in a book coming out on September 24th. It's called The Franchise, about that game. Yeah, I look at that game as like it was national TV and Michael, like I look at Michael.
Actually,
Vick
do remember now Donovan's agent gave a press, like an impromptu press
Fletcher
conference
Smith.
in the press box.
Yeah. And Donovan had beaten the Eagles, 2 weeks earlier or 3 weeks earlier. I was not covering the team then, so that is not on my list. I was covering the Giants. I remember I was watching that at 3 Sheets in the West Village with a few friends of Julia's.
Julia has no idea if she was there or not.
Julia was not there. I would remember if Julia was there. Julia was not there. I don't believe Julia was living in New York at the time. 2010, Julia was not living in New York, right? Yeah, you see. I know, right?
Well, I know you know, but I'm telling you she doesn't know.
Yeah, so, but Julia would know all the people I watched the game with.
Okay. I'm curious what the commenters think. Which of those 2 games is more memorable to you? Because the Chip one was like, oh my God, look what we have. Like the first game of the Chip era, like as you said, the revolution.
Yeah.
Like we are going to take the league by storm, and they come out in that absolute breakneck pace, 53 plays in the first half. It was like, how is the league going to solve this? It felt like something completely new.
I don't think you can play quarterback better than Michael Vick played that night.
I mean, I remember 2 plays from that game. I remember the first touchdown to Deshaun, and I remember Albert Hainsworth lying down.
You got to read this book coming out on September 24th then. It makes me feel good that a bunch of minions are actually going on with my side here, because we're typically
that's good. That's interesting. I'm surprised by that.
Okay.
Number 3 for you. Go ahead.
Number 3 for me, I'm going to Snow Bowl.
Okay.
And Snow Bowl is one of those games that you always look back and like remember what it looked like, what it felt like. It was really just a fascinating. Like before the game, there was and I actually think, because I wrote about this in the franchise too. I'm sorry to keep bringing it up, but you did an oral history on PhiladelphiaEagles.com that I was looking at it as a resource, and that it was really like fascinating to look back at. And I remember it did not snow before the game.
Like it had just barely started.
Exactly, and they weren't expecting that.
It wasn't supposed to be so much
type of snow, and then a little kind of BLG was in the seat before. I remember in the parking lot after the game, another reporter, his wedding ring fell off in the snow, and everyone's frantically looking. And Brandon Lee Galton, eagle-eyed that he is, like points, it's right there. He found it.
Nice.
Yeah, so shout out to BLG.
Whose ring?
I don't vividly remember. I mean, there's two options here, but I don't want to say who it was.
Okay.
But yeah, both options was a columnist, but I don't want to get the columnist wrong. Okay.
Okay.
Yes.
Fair enough. Yeah, the snowball's a good one. For me, number 3 is the Miracle at the New Meadowlands, the Deshaun Jackson punt return. You weren't covering the team at the time.
I was covering the Giants at the time.
Well, there you go. But yeah,
Matt
that one for me from that era is absolutely the most memorable game.
Yeah, and I got to say, from the Giants' perspective, like Matt Dodge, someone who I got to know real well that year, right?
Yeah.
Rookie punter, made the team in training camp. But really handled that in a classy way. I gotta say that. No, I
pretty unique player as well.
Yeah, I was assigned to.
And he was mature the way that he handled it.
Yes, yeah. I wrote the Matt Dodge story after the game, but I remember just how incredulous Tom Coughlin was.
Yeah, was it classy how Tom Coughlin threw him under the bus?
no, Tom was besides himself. But
yeah, I mean the spike of his folder or whatever it was fantastic.
But that because the Giants were really good that year, and I thought the Giants were going to make some noise, and that loss like really put them in a tailspin.
Yeah, and it made the Eagles look like Super Bowl contenders.
And then the next game was against Minnesota in the Joe Webb game, right?
That's right.
Yes.
There you go.
Speaking of snow.
Oh, so what's your number 3? Or you gave me your number 3.
I just gave you the snowball.
Number 2 for me, this is a loss. This is the 2022, 2023 Super Bowl. The Jalen Hurts unbelievable performance. I mean, we don't need to talk about the game too much, but that's number 2 for me.
Yeah, so my number 2, I was debating between that and the NFC Championship game. I went with the NFC Championship game. Like I was writing about the body bag game this week for for ALLPHLY.com, and it's interesting. Like Washington had 2 quarterbacks knocked out that game, right?
Yes.
Some Francisco is like you could say this was like a modern day body bag game.
I said that with Anthony this morning.
Okay, yeah. I gotta go back and watch that. And I just remember well seeing Hassan Reddick rushing around the edge. And yeah, but I need to go to the Super Bowl more because it is a Super Bowl, and they're going against Andy, and it was a great game too.
It was a great game.
Yeah, I mean, it was a great game, and I got to spend quality time with you in Arizona.
There you go.
Paul McCartney saw you the night before, which was real cool. Yeah.
And you were searching for a Waymo, but you couldn't find one until
there was no
many
Waymo
years
then.
later.
There was no Waymo then. Yeah,
I know.
But, it would have been great if there was Waymo. We wouldn't have been sitting in the parking lot. Waymo would have just found its way. But you got to see Paul McCartney, so that was cool. Or Paul McCartney got to see you. Yes. So that's the best podcast host I've heard. Yeah.
Sure.
Yeah.
Okay.
And then number 1, we both have the Super Bowl.
Oh, you have the Super Bowl.
The Eagles 2017.
Yes.
Yeah. What do you have?
I don't know. I would like to make a joke about Eldred Buckley carry or something like that. Okay. But yes, of course, the Super Bowl. I mean, what could possibly be more memorable than the first Eagles Super Bowl championship?
What's your least memorable game? Like,
I gotta tell you, Zach, I am still searching for the answer to the movie that I watched on the plane home.
Oh, really?
And I cannot figure it out. I went on the Delta list of their movies.
You don't remember the name of the movie?
I can't remember anything about it. If I could just remember one thing about it, I would know.
Were you taking sleeping medication or anything?
I mean, I had a couple glasses of wine, but I'm trying to sleep on the plane home.
That's just a day that ends in Y, right? So, yes.
All right.
But no,
it's just a hole in my memory. I cannot figure it out, and it's driving me nuts.
Okay. All right.
So I don't. I mean, if the least memorable game, I wouldn't remember it.
Well, because I do this thing where like I can tell you something about every game that I've ever covered, and I feel confident I can do that even from those early years. The one thing, and I've said this on the air, is like 2020 is such a blur to me. Partly because I wasn't at the game, right? But also, I mean,
It didn't matter.
Yeah, it seemed like there were so many more
Yes.
things going on and just there was just it was so it was especially like in that period when they were bad and they couldn't get it figured out. It was just it just seemed
I
inconsequential.
could probably remember like 4 games from that season.
Yeah. I mean, I can remember some of the games, but that's the game.
Give me a game from a different season and see if I can give you an
from
answer.
a different season. Okay. Do you remember? So let's go since you came back on the beat. I won't test your memory from early on. Do you remember 2018 against the Colts?
2018 against the Colts. Home game?
Yes.
18 against the Colts. Huh. Is that... No, that was the Lions. No, I don't remember anything.
It was Frank Reich coming back to Philly. Andrew Luck got stopped.
Here's what I remember: is Frank Reich sent pastries.
Sent cannolis.
Yeah,
Termy Brothers cannolis. Yeah, that was.
And there was a grammar error in the note.
Of course, you recall that.
That's what I remember.
Okay. Let's see. Do you remember 2019 against the Bills?
Yeah, terrible weather game. Josh Allen didn't play very well. Eagles won, and Kyle Lowry was in attendance after the game, went to the locker room.
Good job. And that's when we drove back to Rochester.
Yes.
Do you remember who was on our flight or who was in the airport in Rochester?
Biz Marquis.
The
second time I'd seen him in USA Pre-Check.
Okay. And then you weren't on the beat in 2016. I won't jog your memory about the earlier ones unless you want a 14 or 13.
If you want to. But
all right, I'll give you 2014 against the let's go 2014 against the Jaguars. You should know this. It's the home opener.
Oh, it was the home opener?
Yeah.
I don't remember.
They started off real slow, and then Sproles had a big, Sproles scored a touchdown. And they came back to win.
Nothing.
Okay.
Nothing there.
Okay.
Like the movie.
2013. I'm not going to give you any division games because you might conflate them. So let's go with 2013 against the Cardinals.
2013 against the Cardinals?
Yeah.
Home or away?
Home. 2014 was on the road against the Cardinals. 2013 was home.
Home. Is this Kevin Cobb?
This was late in the year. No, this was I believe.
Or is this when Hollywood Brown when John Brown scores the touchdown?
That was 2014 on the road.
14 on the road. Okay.
Because that was when Jeremy Maclin went over.
I was hosting the show for that game.
Yeah.
13 at home.
I could be wrong here. Maybe am I conflating 13 and 15?
At home.
I think this actually might have been 15. I'm sorry. David Johnson had a big run. David Johnson ran all over them. It might have been 15. Yeah.
Nothing there for me.
Okay.
Sorry.
All right. Look, we did not do Tick Zack Baun today.
Okay.
But are you watching Presumed Innocent?
No.
Oh, you got to watch Presumed Innocent. Are you, Julia? All right, you got to watch Presumed Innocent.
Why?
And is anyone in the chat watching Presumed Innocent?
Why do we have to watch it?
Well, you don't have to, but it's just it's a gripping show.
Convince me to watch Presumed Innocent.
It's the best show on television right now. I watch shows during the summer. Your grip,
What's the hook?
Well, have you seen the movie?
No.
Okay. So good thing you haven't seen the movie. But I imagine David E. Kelly, the writer, has some twist from the movie. I hope. It was a great movie in the 90s with Harrison Ford.
Okay.
But I don't want to give away the premise, but I'm sure, it's a law thriller, a crime law thriller. It's great.
I'm sorry to say that you have not convinced me yet.
Well, because I don't want to give away. Should I give away the... But
I don't care. How'd you convince me?
It's the first episode, okay? Should I tell? No, now there's 7 episodes in. The finale comes out Wednesday.
Okay. It's good. You think it's good?
It's really good. I don't want to say what the hook is of the show because that would give away the first episode.
Okay.
Right? But it's good. It's I talked about this last week. Jake Gyllenhaal, not Jack Gyllenhaal. Jake Gyllenhaal is the main actor in it.
Oh, he's good.
Yeah, he is good. He's good. What do you think of with Jake Gyllenhaal? What movie
he's
comes
good.
to mind? No, what movie comes to mind?
What movie comes to mind?
Mm-hmm.
Zodiac.
No, never seen it. Okay.
Is that wrong? It's not. He's not. Is he in Zodiac? Am I conflicted? He is, right? Yeah. What's the one where he's like a TMZ guy?
A TMZ guy? I don't know that one.
He's good in that one.
Okay.
Also in the John Mulaney Sack Lunch Bunch.
Okay.
What comes to mind for you?
For Jake Gyllenhaal? The pharmaceutical salesman, Love and Other Drugs.
Oh.
With Anne Hathaway. Yeah. So.
Okay. Is Presumed Innocent better or worse than that Jonah Hill rom-com you recommended?
Oh, it's better. The Jonah Hill rom-com is just the Jonah Hill rom-com was just like mindless watching. Okay. This, you're like, you can, if Emily has her phone out during the show, I'm like, let's get off Instagram right now. We're watching
Nightcrawler
this.
Is the movie that I was thinking of.
Yeah. Is anyone in the chat watching Presumed Innocent right now? You have 30 seconds before we move on. I'm surprised. I mean, Bill Simmons is watching it. He had a whole podcast.
I think Mikey Mitz is right. PHLY Eagles is the best show on television.
Oh, I appreciate that. Thank you. We're digital, but yeah, you can watch it on your TV.
Wow. He just rebuffed your compliment.
But yeah, but actually, we got exciting things coming up with PHLY Eagles and PHLY overall that we're excited to share soon.
Well, I think we can share this now. We're going to be moving to 2:00.
Oh, that okay. I was thinking of something else, but yeah, 2:00's good.
Camp starts next week, and in anticipation of that, we're moving. We're moving from noon to 2. No more high noon. Put the pistols away.
Yeah. So hold on. I'm just I'm messaging Julia right now.
She's right there. She could talk to her.
Yeah, I don't want to say it in case I can't say it. But Julia's reading this now. This is really riveting. Yeah. Okay. Yeah. That's why I didn't say it. If I said it out loud, that would be giving it away.
I don't even know what you're. Oh yeah. No, I can't say that.
Okay. So that's.
But obviously you can't say that. Why would you even think you could say that?
So that's what I mean. Yeah. But we are moving to 2:00 on Tuesday. I'm sorry, on Monday, rather. Sorry.
Uh-oh.
On
broke him.
On Monday. Excited about this because we'll come fresh off the practice. Most days will be around 10:00. They'll be wrapping up practice around 11:30, 12. Bo and I will be talking to the players, the coaches, right? After practice, we'll hop right on 95, get over here, fresh off the practice field. You'll still smell my sunscreen. And we will be doing shows Monday to Friday during camp. And like you said yesterday, we will be doing, if updates warrant it, on YouTube and on social, from the weekend practices, and I will have something on allphly.com. Also, like Bo was saying, we will keep 2:00 through the season because
that's the plan.
Yeah, because this will allow us to, Bo and I will be at NovaCare, and we'll be in the locker room, and then we'll come over here fresh off the locker room. And some days, maybe I'll be chiming in from NovaCare, but we will be a consistent time because I know last year we were figuring a lot of things out last year, but Monday was at this time, Tuesday was that time, Wednesday was that time. So now you'll know 2:00, and it's a great time because who doesn't like 2:00? It's nice. It's what I like about 2 is okay. I was talking about this last night.
2 is better than 1. They always say.
I was talking about this last night. 2 is like, if you leave work early, you're not leaving at 2. You're leaving at maybe 3:30, 4:00, right? But you typically you're not on your lunch break at 2:00. Maybe it could be a late lunch break, but 2:00 you might be plopped at your desk, right? You can get a lot done in the morning. Like I'll get a lot more writing done in the mornings here. So I'm looking forward to 2:00.
You like a 2, Julia?
That seems like a very lukewarm endorsement. Jeez, that's like saying, "How was that dinner in Hoboken?" Yeah.
How was the movie on the plane?
Yeah.
Still trying to figure it out. Okay. All right. That'll do it for this episode of the PHLY Eagles podcast. Thanks to everybody for watching and joining all week. Back next week. The clickety-clack of training camp is just around the corner. We will be with you starting at 2:00 on Monday all the way through the end of the season and beyond that too. So for HZ, I'm Bo Wulf. And for Julia as well, we thank you for watching and listening and hanging out with us. We will talk to you on Monday. And as always, we love you.
We all city like the mayor.